Hey guys, welcome back to the D&N Medical Series. It's your girl Nikki, and today we'll be doing a video on the anterior abdominal wall. So as you see here, we can see the anterior abdominal wall exposed in this gentleman here. So just before we jump into anything specific, I just want to just identify some stuff so we can orientate ourselves. So when I call these names throughout the video, you understand what I'm talking about. So let's start here. So this line in the middle is called the linea alba. So this midline group here, linea alba. So as said before, this is the linear alba. And what specifically is the linear alba? So the linear alba is like a fibrous raphe, and it extends from the xiphoid process of the sternum to the pubic symphysis. And what forms it? This area right here is formed by the fibers of the upper neurosis of the three anterior abdominal muscles, the external oblique, the internal oblique, and the transversus abdominis. When they become aponeurotic, they come together and form the linear alba. And the linear alba is avascular, so there is no blood supply there. There is no supply to the linear alba because it's avascular. These things that we call the six-pack, that's the rectus abdominis muscle. So the six-pack, rectus abdominis, middle line is linear alba, and out here at the outer edge of the six-pack, we call that the linea semilunaris. So we have linear alba, linea semilunaris, and in between the six-pack, these transverse lines, you'd call them horizontal lines between the six-pack, they are the tendinous intersections. So they're like splitting the six-pack into their individual pieces. So again, linear alba, linear semilunaris, rectus abdominis, and So when identifying organs and different things in the anterior abdominal wall, we usually divide it into 9 quadrants or 9 areas. So as you can see here, these areas are labeled. So right hypochondriac region, left hypochondriac region, right iliac region, left iliac region, epigastric region in the center, umbilical region where your umbilicus is, hypogastric region below this, and the right lumbar and left lumbar region. So we have the hypochondriac regions, the iliac regions, the epigastric regions, and the lumbar regions. So this transverse line right here, where the right hypochondriac region splits here, you can see this transverse line here. We call this the subcostal plane. So this basically is in relation to the 10th costal cartilage. So it's like the lowermost bony point of the rib cage down here, and we call it the subcostal region. And right here is at the level of L3 vertebra, and right at this area is an important thing forms there, and it's the origin of the inferior mesenteric artery and the third part of the duodenum. So the subcostal plane right here, this transverse line here, level of the 10th costal cartilage at L3 vertebra, origin of the inferior mesenteric artery and the third part of the duodenum lies right in this plane. And this plane down here, this other transverse plane down below, is a transtubercular plane. Transtubercular plane, and it corresponds to the line of the Q2 because of the iliac crest. So your iliac crest out here, so it's like they're corresponding with each other, and that's the transtubercular plane, and it's the upper border of L5 vertebra. So up here you'd expect L3, down here L5, and this at L5 is where we have the origin of IVC, the inferior vena cava starts here. When two common iliac veins join, we get IVC at L5 or the transtubercular plane. So if they ask you for the important thing at the transtubercular plane, is the origin of IVC, where two common iliac veins join. And let's talk about the layers of the anterior abdominal wall. So from skin going in, what do you have? So the first thing you touch on your stomach is the skin. Underneath the skin, we have two superficial fascias. So one is called the Camper's fascia and the other is Scarpa's fascia, as you can see here. So Camper's fascia right here is this fleshy one. It's the fatty layer. So under the skin we have Camper's fascia. C comes before S, and below that we have Scarpa's fascia, and that's the membranous layer. So we have a fatty layer and a membranous layer. Underneath the fascias, the superficial fascias, we have the three muscles: external oblique, internal oblique, and transverse abdominis muscle. From the muscles, we have the transversalis fascia. So if you have the transversalis muscle, you would have the transversalis fascia next, transverse abdominis muscle, sorry, and below that you have transversalis fascia. Then we have another extraperitoneal fat, and then the parietal peritoneum. So you can just find a mnemonic for this, but remember: skin, Camper's fascia, which is a fatty layer; Scarpa's fascia, which is the membranous layer; the three muscles, followed by transversalis fascia, some fat, and the parietal peritoneum. So the next thing I'm going to do is just jump into the origin and insertion of the three muscles that we said were in the layers of the anterior abdominal wall. So this one right here is the external oblique muscle. As you can see, this is a very big muscle. So it arises from the outer surface of the lower 8 ribs. You can see the outer surface of the lower 8 ribs, so that's from rib 5 to rib 12, and it also overlaps the lower 4 digitation of the serratus anterior muscle, as well as slips of the latissimus dorsi muscle. So look where it arises, the lower 8 ribs, and it covers the serratus anterior and latissimus dorsi muscle, and it comes all the way down to insert into the external lip of the iliac crest. So external is different from the internal lip. So the external lip is the outside of the iliac crest, right about out here. You insert there, and it also goes to insert into the pubic tubercle via the inguinal ligament. So by way of the inguinal ligament, you can leave from the ASIS straight to the pubic tubercle. So the inguinal ligament helps to do that. So it's inserting the external lip of the iliac crest as well as the inguinal ligament, which helps it to connect to the pubic tubercle. And here you can see these areas where it gets white. Those are aponeurosis. So at this area, the external oblique muscle gets aponeurotic and inserts into the linear alba, which is the center group that I told you about. So eight ribs, outer 8 ribs, insert in the external lip of iliac crest by way of the inguinal ligament from the ASIS to the pubic tubercle, and it also inserts into the linear alba by its aponeurotic fibers, and the nerve supply is the lower 6 intercostal nerves. So always remember that, lower 6 intercostal nerve. One last time: outer 8 ribs, insert in the external lip, and by way of the inguinal ligament to the pubic tubercle, also inserts in the linear alba by aponeurotic fibers, and the nerve supplies the lower 6 intercostal. The next one we're going to quickly run through is the internal oblique muscle. So this is the internal oblique muscle. Remember, we said the external oblique inserts in the iliac crest. Guess what? The internal oblique originates from the iliac crest. The external oblique was the external lip. The internal oblique originates from the intermediate area. So you have an external area, an intermediate lip, and an internal lip for the iliac crest. So the external is external lip, the internal is the intermediate area, and the next muscle would be the inner lip. So let's start with this one. So the internal oblique is in the intermediate area of the iliac crest. It also originates from the thoracolumbar fascia, as well as the lateral 2/3 of the inguinal ligament. So the inguinal ligament is here, from the ASIS to the pubic tubercle. And so this muscle originates from down here, from the intermediate lip of the iliac crest, as well as the thoracolumbar fascia. it inserts by a conjoint tendon. So what is the conjoint tendon? So it's basically the transverse abdominis muscle as well as the internal oblique muscle. When they become aponeurotic, they form a conjoint tendon, a tendon that joins together. So the insertion of the internal oblique muscle is the conjoint tendon of these two muscles going to insert into the pubic crest, as you can see there, and it also inserts into the lower sixth rib and the linear alba, as you can see there. So most of these muscles become aponeurotic after they start extending. So one last time over the internal oblique origin and insertion. So it originates from the intermediate lip, or the intermediate area of the iliac crest. It also originates from the thoracolumbar fascia, and it also originates from the lateral 2/3 of the inguinal ligament. So ligament, intermediate lip of iliac crest, as well as thoracolumbar fascia. It inserts via conjoint tendon in the pubic crest. It also inserts in the pectineal line, as well as the lower six ribs and the linear alba. The nerve supply is the lower six thoracic nerves and L1. So remember, the external oblique was the lower six intercostal nerve. The internal oblique now is the lower six thoracic nerves and L1. So now let's talk about the transversus abdominis muscle. So it's this muscle right here, you can see it. So remember, we said the internal oblique arises from the lateral 2/3 of the inguinal ligament. Well, the transversus abdominis muscle originates from the lateral 1/3 of the inguinal ligament. It also originates from the inner lip of the iliac crest. Remember, external was external lip, internal was the intermediate lip or the intermediate area, and transversus abdominis is the inner lip of the iliac crest. So lateral third of the inguinal ligament, lateral third of the inguinal ligament here, inner lip of the iliac crest, the thoracolumbar fascia, as well as the inner aspect of the lower sixth rib. So the lower sixth rib, thoracolumbar fascia, inner lip of iliac crest, and the lateral third of the inguinal ligament. It inserts in the xiphoid process right here of the sternum. So the xiphoid process of the sternum, it also inserts in the linear alba and the pubic crest and pectineal line of the pubis. So you can see it starts here, internal lip, lateral third of inguinal ligament, thoracolumbar fascia, lower sixth rib, and it inserts in the xiphoid process, linear alba, as well as the pectineal line of the pubis and the pubic crest. The nerve supply of the transversus abdominis muscle is the lower six intercostal. So again, the anterior abdominal wall extends from the sternum to the pubic symphysis, and the nerve supply of the anterior abdominal wall is the anterior rami of the lower six thoracic nerve and L1. So the lower six thoracic nerve and L1. So note carefully that the iliohypogastric nerve is a nerve to mons pubis. So over the pubic area, right there is the iliohypogastric nerve and not the lower six intercostal or thoracic nerve. And the penis and the scrotum get supply from the ilioinguinal nerve. So the entire anterior abdominal wall is the lower six thoracic nerve and L1. So let's talk about a little dermatomes. So the skin supplying the area of the xiphisternum, that's like the sword point, we call the sternum. Well, I call the sternum like a sword, and the point here, the xiphisternum, the skin supplying there is a T7 dermatome. The skin over the umbilicus or your belly button is T10 dermatome. And the skin supplying the mons pubis down here is L1 dermatome. So very key information. T7 at the xiphisternum, T10 at the umbilicus, and L1 at the mons pubis. So the blood supply for the anterior abdominal wall is basically from the superior epigastric and musculophrenic arteries, as well as the inferior epigastric artery. So we're not going to go in that much. So the superior epigastric artery is from the femoral artery, and the inferior epigastric artery is from the external iliac. So just remember, the blood supply is from the superior and inferior epigastric artery. So the main venous drainage to the anterior abdominal wall is the thoracoepigastric vein, draining superiorly to the axillary vein. So when you have portal hypertension per se, in this case you have the superficial veins, they can get varicose. So it's around the umbilical areas, the superficial veins get varicose, and they give rise to something called caput medusa. I'll show you guys a picture right here of what caput medusa looks like, and that's in the case of portal hypertension. So when it comes to lymph drainage now, the area right here is considered a watershed area. The umbilicus region is considered a watershed area. What do I mean as watershed? It means above supply is different from the supply below. So above, the lymph drainage above the umbilicus is draining to the axillary nodes, and the axillary nodes, specifically the pectoral group. So above the umbilicus is the axillary node, specifically the pectoral group, and below the umbilicus is the superficial inguinal nodes and the medial group. So the medial group of superficial inguinal nodes below. So the last and final thing that we're going to discuss about the abdominal wall is the posterior surface, and these have some umbilical folds. So they're remnants of different things, and they're key to remember. So let's start here. So use the color coded for the different arrows, they match. So let's start with the blue one. So the blue one is in the center. So on the posterior abdominal wall, you see this fold right here, and we call it the median umbilical fold. And the median umbilical fold is in the center, not medial, but median with a N. So median umbilical fold is a remnant of the urachus or the allantoic stalk. So key to remember, that one is in the center. The next one is medial. So we have one median, two medial. So this is the medial red right here. These two would be medial. So median, medial. So the medial umbilical fold is formed from the obliterated umbilical arteries. So when the baby is born and the umbilical arteries no more, they form the medial umbilical fold. And the last one is the lateral umbilical fold. We also have two lateral umbilical folds, and they're formed from the inferior epigastric arteries. So key thing to remember, what form each fold. Median in the center, formed from the remnants urachus or the allantoic stalk, it's one. Medial, it's two, formed from the obliterated umbilical arteries. And lateral umbilical fold formed from the inferior epigastric arteries, and we have two lateral, one median, two medial, and two lateral. And that's basically it for the anterior abdominal wall anatomy. I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. And if you're not yet a subscriber, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And you can also follow us on Instagram at D&Nmedicalseries. Bye.